What do you think India is doing with Pakistan right now? Is it thinking about perhaps taking territory in Pakistan?
I don't think we are in a mood or interested in doing anything to grab it by force. Please tell me, what do they bring to the table?
Why have we started to do targeted assassinations in Pakistan?
I don't know if we are actually doing targeted assassinations.
If you wanted to weaken Pakistani society from within, what kind of elements would you exploit?
If you're talking about fault lines, there are plenty of them. Question is, there are multiple axes on which if somebody wants to work on, you can work on. There are serious allegations of corruption which are now being leveled against current US administration.
Short, इन्होंने $560 million short करा after the oil.
For example, in the Middle East, there is so much of economic interaction between us and the Middle East. It is an extension of the Indian economy.
What about our ideological dissimilarities with the Gulf?
We've not had a problem with the Iranians. We've never had a problem even with the Afghans.
And how does the US exactly use Pakistan? And I think I've spoken to this guy on Twitter. His name is Muji Singh Rangi nowadays. It's an anon account. He resurfaced a tweet from Barack Obama where Barack Obama is saying कि हाँ मैंने मनमोहन सिंह की बात सुनी है and I will talk to Pakistan. This was right after 26/11 कि मैं बात करने की कोशिश करता हूँ. तो historically the kind of peace talks we've had versus now, what do you think India is doing with Pakistan right now? Is it indifferent to Pakistan? Is it seeing it as a competing power? Is it thinking about perhaps taking territory in Pakistan?
I don't think there is any serious kind of a policy to take back territory or to do something to take back territory. That does not mean that we've given up the claim to the territory. But I don't think we are in a mood or interested in doing anything to grab it by force. If it falls in our laps, we will not refuse it. But I don't think anything more than that. Beyond that, I think the attitude has been that, listen, Pakistan brings nothing to the table. In terms of the benefits of engaging with Pakistan are far outweighed by the costs of engaging with Pakistan. So there is no purpose that is going to be served by talking to these people. Nothing that they promise you that they deliver on. Their policy is one of treachery, of backstabbing, of reneging on their own word, and invariably the excuse is that, listen, we wanted to do something, but somebody else, the army or somebody else sabotaged the entire initiative. So they keep making these excuses. So there is nothing which is to be gained by talking to them because there is no seriousness of purpose of making peace on their side. And, people very often forget that when Modi came in, he did what every prime minister in India does. This is this khurak in every Indian prime minister that I will be the guy who will go and settle matters with Pakistan. So Modi also threw his dice on that. And between 2014, when he assumed office, till about 2016, the cutoff date, I would say, is Uri. Till that time, you will see there were at least, I can count at least 5 initiatives where he, took the first step to reach out to Pakistan, starting with, of course, inviting Nawaz Sharif, among other people from the region, for his swearing in, and then taking it forward on a number of occasions. And after every time he would take this initiative, there would be a major terror attack. You would remember, I think this was 2015 December, when he had gone impromptu to Lahore to wish Nawaz Sharif.
Yep.
And then a week later, you had on the 1st or 2nd of January of 2016, you had the attacks in Pathankot. At that point of time also, Modi did not give up because Nawaz Sharif promised him that I will get to the bottom of it, I will investigate it, all of that bullshit. And Modi took it. We even went to the extent of allowing them to send a team over, which legally made a lot of sense. Because if the incident happened in India, then and the investigations were to be happening in Pakistan against the planners and perpetrators, then a team had to come from Pakistan to the site of incident and examine it and do whatever the legalistic stuff is. So to that extent, it was all very well, and he took a lot of political flack for it, and yet he put his faith in Nawaz Sharif, but nothing came out of it. And then Uri happened, after which you had the surgical strikes, and since then, so it's like what, 8 years, it's been a steady downhill. Uh, so I think there is that realization, at least in this government, uh, that there is no purpose is going to be served by engaging with the Pakistan. There is no economic dividend which comes India's way. There is nothing positive at all. So you can ideally, if there was, instead of a Bay of Bengal, there was a Bay of Pakistan, it was one big sea which did not exist. I think India would be the happiest for it. But unfortunately, we have this neighbor from hell. So, you say that, okay, fine, I'm just going to turn my back on these guys. I'm not interested in them. But um, we don't see them as a peer competitor. There are some people, who keep suffering those pangs. This is again that controversy right now, that why is Pakistan being allowed to take the diplomatic initiative? Why is India not jumping into the fire in the Middle East? Why the hell should we? But we can come to that later. But, so there is that element which suffers from a Stockholm syndrome. Some of those people have gone and served in Pakistan as either journalists or as diplomats, or have engaged with the Pakistanis on track to Jambulis. So those are characters, who are still flogging that particular line. But other than that, I think most Indians are very happy to just turn their back on Pakistan and pretend it doesn't exist. But to the extent that it is a nuisance, that there is terrorism coming India's way, to that extent, of course, there will be an interest. And of course, there will be an interest that if you have a neighboring country which is also an avowed enemy, uh, and which makes no bones about it, not just an enemy state, they they have positioned itself as a civilizational enmity, even though most of these bloody Punjabi Muslims are bloody converts. But they think that they are Arabs and they are Central Asians and whatnot. Most of them are from this place only. But they have those pretensions that we were the invaders who came and occupied these territories. So they are that big a loser. But the fact of the matter remains that you will keep an eye out, and you should not ignore what they are doing, because whatever they are doing, it is to hurt you. So to that extent, you will try and counter them wherever you can. But other than that, I don't see what is the purpose. What do they give to us? Yeah, like I asked you right at the beginning. Please tell me, what do they bring to the table?
But they bring Coke Studio and good Pakistani serials, is what many would argue.
Yeah, Madhi, come on, Madhi, if this is what is going to make the basis of our relationship with them, what Pakistani serial incident is so good that it is the typical cheesy type of romance?
हाँ, मेरे ख्याल से लोग यहीं पे सॉफ्ट कॉर्नर ले लेते हैं बस थोड़ा सा कि भाई हमें पाकिस्तानी सीरियल अच्छे लगते हैं, उनका म्यूजिक बड़ा अच्छा है, देखिए उनके अदब देखिए, उनकी उर्दू देखिए. दिस इज द ओनली टाइम वेयर एन एवरेज सिटीजन हु इज नॉट.
अरे यार, कभी पंजाबियों को उर्दू बोलते हुए सुना है तूने? अरे उनकी उर्दू सुनी है, उनकी उर्दू उर्दू सुननी है तो तुम साला लखनऊ चले जाओ यार, उर्दू सुन लो. वहां पर नहीं सुननी उर्दू, लखनऊ की नहीं उर्दू सुननी, जहां पर एक्चुअली विच इज लाइक द सेंटर ऑफ द लैंग्वेज इन अ मैनर ऑफ स्पीकिंग. वहां की नहीं उर्दू सुननी, बट यू वांट टू हियर द उर्दू ऑफ द पंजाबी हु कैन नॉट इवन प्रोनाउंस इट प्रॉपर्ली. So, this is again the typical nonsensical nostalgia of partition which comes in for a lot of people. And there is this basic problem in India that because somebody speaks our language, or the same language that we speak, and we can understand that language, we think that there is a immediate connect with that person. There is not. So you want to fool yourself that you went to Lahore and somebody took you to some goddamn market and gave you some shitty bloody gift and didn't take money for it, and you are, your heart is overflowing with love for that, fine. But if that is all it takes for you to compromise on the interests of your country, then, it doesn't speak very highly for your intellect or your patriotism.
या आई थिंक देयर आर मैनी इन आवर कंट्री स्पेशली वेरी एजुकेटेड पीपल जिनको ऐसा लगता है कि वो हमारे ही लोग हैं, एंड दे हैव अ हार्ड टाइम अदरिंग देम, एंड दे कंप्लीटली uh, subtract national security when they think about Pakistan. They think about them as एक administration बुरी है, लोग अच्छे हैं. But let me ask you something else.
Yeah. Now, these are two assumptions you've said. One, actually three. You use the word educated people.
हाँ,
Being literate is not being educated.
sure.
Okay? These are literate people. They can read and write and understand something, but they're not really educated, at least not in this particular field. Second, frankly, when they say that we are the same people, they're, हमारे जैसे ही लोग हैं, nothing pisses off the Pakistani more than that. And it's good idiots actually say this shit. Right? These idiots in India who say हमारे जैसे ही लोग हैं, etc., etc., nothing pisses off a Pakistani more than that. Because the Pakistani thinks you're questioning his nationhood. And I encourage these idiots to go out there because when they show and they shower their love on the Pakistanis and get a kick on their ass, they deserve it. So that is the second part of it. There was a third part of it which you were saying, which I think I've just missed out.
नहीं, वो कह रहे हैं कि लोग उनकी एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन खराब है, लोग अच्छे हैं.
अच्छा हाँ अच्छा अब इसको कैसे डिसाइड करते हो कि लोग अच्छे हैं सरकारें दिस इज आई हैव बीन हियरिंग दिस एवर सिंस आई हैव बीन बोर्न ओके
खासकर जो स्टूडेंट्स बाहर जाते हैं, जैसे यूके में पढ़ाई कर रहे हो आप, यूएसए में पढ़ाई कर रहे हो, तो वहाँ इंडिया, पाकिस्तान, बांग्लादेश एक हो जाते हैं ना.
नहीं वो इसलिए होते हैं बिकॉज वी हैव अ ghetto mentality.
या
Our students go abroad and then because they are with a ghetto mentality they try and hang around with people like themselves because either they are a little maybe there is no connect with the white people in the US or Canada, UK, wherever. So you tend to hang out with people like you. Uh, so this whole thing that yeah, we get along very well. You get along very well up to a point. But when you reach the tipping point, which is where you and I can sit together, even if we have political differences, we can talk about it and discuss it and still remain friends. Try and do it with a Pakistan.
why do you think, Sushant, we have shifted from एक तरह की diplomacy to military operations to now targeted killings in Pakistan since 2021? हम वो भी हमारे को अक्यूज करते हैं कि हमारे बैक्ड एंटी पाकिस्तान एलिमेंट्स उनको जाके उड़ाते हैं, असैसिनेट करते हैं, which is I think in a very simplistic way somewhat the basis of the movie Dhurandhar. Why have we started to do targeted assassinations in Pakistan?
Yeah, Dick, I don't know if we are actually doing targeted assassinations. I'm not privy to it, but I think um, it's a good this thing which mythology that has been created. Um, the fact that a lot of people who have been involved in terror incidents, which incidentally, the Pakistanis feel embarrassed about when they talk about some of those killings taking place. They will say, he was running a school, he was running a madrasa, etc., etc. But they will never say what exactly his background was because, then it kind of exposes them. But I would imagine that there would be a lot of cases in which many of these characters, so they were not they were not members of missionaries of charity. These were hardcore jihadi criminals, crooks, murderers. And there are a lot of rivalries inside Pakistan, which these guys have, a lot of enmities. So I don't know who are the guys who are bumping them off. Frankly, if there was an element where, our covert agencies were also targeting some guys, I'm not going to be squeamish on that count. Simply because these are people who have been responsible for the deaths of thousands of people in India. And for the Pakistanis to pretend that, listen, if I kill you, a Hindu, that's perfectly fine. You are not supposed to protest about it. You're not supposed to feel bad about it. You're supposed to fucking like my music. You're supposed to like my food. You're supposed to like me. You're supposed to come and talk to me. I'm sorry, it does not work anymore. Right? It's as simple as that. Now, if there is an element of it, I'm not going to be squeamish about it. Of course, I don't think anybody will at least in the government, will ever publicly accept that something like this was happening. The second is on why are we using a more militaristic approach? Simply because the diplomatic approach has failed. Uh, for the longest, we've had, this very diplomatic kind of an approach that the Pakistanis would carry out at 26/11. And how would the then foreign secretary of the time, I won't name names, people can check out who it was. Uh, the standard operating procedure in India was retaliating to a Pakistani attack by threatening to retaliate. And you know how the Pakistanis make fun of us? They say a typical Hindu coward, अगली बारी मत करियो फिर दिखाऊंगा. तो नाउ दिखाना शुरू कर दिया है ना. So what is the problem? And the point is that the Pakistanis have to understand that, listen, this is how far it goes. And beyond a point, this is not going to be tolerated anymore. And if it means that there will be conflict, there will be war, then yes, there will be war. Now, the same logic which we have been trying to tell the Pakistanis for decades is what the Pakistanis are now telling the Afghans. And none of these asshole Pakistanis, these Najam City Petty type ISPR Havaldars who come on television and who are great friends with people out here, shameless wretches, none of these guys ever accept the fact that what we have been telling them for 40 years, 50 years, is exactly what they have been trying to tell the Afghans. And what we have started doing when there is a major attack in India is exactly what the Pakistanis are doing with Afghans, but they can do it with the Afghans because the Afghans' ability to hit back is not so much. In our case, it can lead to, going up the escalation ladder, and it can lead to a bigger conflict. Bigger conflict which is not in our interest, but it is not also in Pakistani interest. And for the Pakistanis, there is a realization that, look, if you go down this path, then, we could get into a conflagration which we don't want. So the idea from the Indian side is that, listen, guys, you do whatever shit you want to do, whatever jihadism nonsense you want to do in your own damn country, you do whatever the hell you want to do. Just don't send it across. You send it across, and it crosses my threshold of tolerance, I'm going to hit back. And after that, I'm not going to stop until you stop, which is exactly what happened during Sindhu. So I think this is the messaging from the Indian side. The point is that this messaging has come about because we have now started calling their bluff on the nuclear issue. And we have, started calling their bluff that the Indians will not do anything. If we can do whatever we want to do, and there is complete impunity with what we want to do. What Sindhur has also told them is that if you make these kind of bases, then they will be targeted. So if you take out about 9 camps in one night, then that will happen. So, in a sense, it is because diplomacy failed. It is because all that bullshit which some of these retired people are suggesting to us, that inse baat karo, let's talk to them, let's keep an engagement, let us start a women's caucus, as though that will help, as though none of these people, I'm challenging you, not one of these people will tell you what is the result of all of this talk. Has it changed the Pakistani policy even by a notch? Not one of these people can tell you this. And this is something which listen, I've come to this position after having been a peacenik. Okay, there was a time I was a peacenik in my life until I learned how stupid I was. And there was a time that I had some good friends across the border who would tell me, this is after I stopped being a peacenik. They would tell me that such and such general is in power now, and this general and the people, the new crop of generals, are genuinely interested in reaching out to India, making peace with India. And then I would ask them, Acha, theek hai, I take whatever you're telling me, I'll take it on face value. but please give me evidence that they have actually changed their policy. And there is nothing to show for it. So don't give me bullshit, yaar. I have been fed on bullshit for bloody decades. You show me what you are doing. It's like that movie Jerry Maguire, that dialogue. Show me the money,
Mhm.
right? So you show me what you are doing. Don't tell me what you are doing. And there is nothing to show. So then why should I take you seriously? तो ये ट्रैक टू में यही बकवास करेंगे ना ये लोग आके, यही बकवास करते हैं और हमारे बंदे जाके बोलते हैं अरे वो जनरल साहब आए थे उसने मुझे ये बोला. अबे वो फुद्दू बना रहे हैं यार तुम्हारा, और तुम फुद्दू बन रहे हो कि जी जनरल साहब ने मुझे बोला. जनरल साहब के क्या वेद वाक्य है कि उसने बोल दिया तुम्हारे को कुछ? जनरल साहब ने बोल दिया. वाई डू अज्यूम दैट द जनरल विल नॉट लाई टू यू? Why do you think he is not trying to mislead you? Like, are you that naive? Are you that gullible? Clearly, most of these guys are.
I think this tendency to wear rose-tinted glasses has done more damage than good. Let me ask you hypothetically, given your expertise on Pakistan, if you wanted to weaken Pakistani society from within, what kind of elements would you exploit? Would it be to sow tensions between certain groups?
These are not things which are discussed on podcasts.
अरे, चलो इसको मैं रिफ्रेम करके आपसे पूछता हूँ. पाकिस्तान के अंदर जो मल्टीपल, क्योंकि ये तो मैं जानता हूँ जैसे भारत के अंदर एक सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट है और उसके अलावा देर इज इट्स नॉट एन ओलिगार्क लाइक सिस्टम. वी हैव द बिग बिजनेसमैन हियर श्योर, अंबानी अदानी, बट यहाँ पे ऐसा नहीं है कि जैसे 4-5 वॉरिंग फैक्शंस हैं जो compete कर रही हैं. तो पाकिस्तान का ऐसा सोशल मिलिट्री पॉलिटिकल मेकअप क्या है जो, if you don't want to explore it directly, is already at a point where it's in division and possibly in conflict with each other?
I think there are a lot of, if you're talking about fault lines, there are plenty of them.
Like what?
There are ethnic fault lines, there are sectarian fault lines, there are political fault lines, um, there are fault lines within the military, uh, all kinds of things. Question is, there are multiple axes on which, if somebody wants to work on, you can work on. And frankly, there is a lot which can be done if you actually put your mind to it and you actually decide that you are going to go down that road.
Mhm.
I am not entirely convinced that anybody in India has actually made up their mind to do that. Because if you were to do that, it might take a little long, but there is plenty that can be done. Especially because, look, you can see manifestations of alienation against the Pakistani state within, right? You can see it. It's very, one manifestation is, of course, what the Taliban are doing, the TTP guys, the Tehrik-e-Taliban, Pakistani Taliban guys, right? What those guys are doing. And their footprint is now expanding from Pakistan occupied Gilgit Baltistan, Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir, that area, the POK part, down to the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, down in parts of Balochistan. That is what their footprint is.
ये क्या करते हैं? What does the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan do exactly? Is it an offshoot of the Taliban in Afghanistan?
Well, it's like almost like a sister organization. It's like joined at the hip. They draw their inspiration from the Taliban. They are part of the Taliban ecosphere, if you want to call it that. These are people who gave the Afghan Taliban sanctuaries inside Pakistan. These are people who went and fought on behalf of the Afghan Taliban, but they've also fought against the Pakistani state. They have their own version of Islam, brand of Islam, which they want to impose. So they are creating havoc in large parts of Pakistan, right? Then you have the Baloch freedom fighters, right? and their capabilities have been demonstrated in a number of very spectacular attacks. In fact, if you look at Pakistan very carefully, and you see the Indus River as the dividing line, the areas west of Indus, large parts of those are not even in the writ of the government does not run. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can take the word of Pakistani senior, responsible political leaders, journalists uh, who are very closely attached to the Pakistani state. You can take their word for it when they say that there are places where the writ of the state does not run in the night. There are places where it does not run during the day. In places like Balochistan, district officers who are supposed to be kings, in a manner of speaking, uh, are not able to travel on highways. Ministers cannot travel on national highways. Uh, so there is a huge tumult taking place west of Pakistan. But if you were to look at Lahore, Islamabad, maybe to some extent Karachi, you would imagine that no, it's all normal. So it's like somebody in Pakistan only has written it's like a tale of two cities or two countries, where there is this east of the river Indus, it seems to be all pretty all right. And then west of the Indus, there is this problem. And then there is this economic fault line, which is becoming more and more severe. The middle class has been wiped out over the last 7, 8 years, literally because of kind of the economic distress levels, which have shot through the roof. The economy is just not picking up. There is virtually no investment taking place. All these generals and others. See, most of these generals are 10वीं पास 12वीं पास यार. तो इनको क्या दिमाग होगा? ठीक है, मतलब कि they're good as maybe professional soldiers, but you don't know how to run business. You don't know how to run economics, right? Uh, but they want to have a finger in every. It's like the IAS in India. They want to have a finger in every pie. So there are these guys who have taken charge of the economy, but they have nothing to show for it. So they will come up with this that now I've gone, I'm going to get $100 billion of investment. अबे खोती के बच्चे, तेरे को ये पता होना चाहिए कि 100 बिलियन की अगर इन्वेस्टमेंट आ जाए ना कंट्री लाइक पाकिस्तान, उसको अब्सॉर्ब ही नहीं कर सकते आप. देयर इज every economy has a certain absorptive capacity. You cannot absorb that kind of money over even a period of 3, 4, 5 years. Uh, so the point is that 25 बिलियन आ जाएगा कतर से, 25 बिलियन सऊदी अरेबिया से, 25 बिलियन यूएई से, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. So these dreams which you keep showing, not a damn far thing has come. So, the economy is tanking. Virtually, Pakistanis are running from Pakistan. Any educated Pakistani who can get a job anywhere outside Pakistan is going away. Uh, so there is a huge crisis on the economic front. It's like this lava which is like bubbling over, and one wonders if it will burst. But Punjab is they're the most meek and colonized people in the world. I'm sure people will find this very surprising because at individual levels, Punjabis can be pretty fractious and लड़ाके बड़े होते हैं. But as as a combined person, people, when was the last time you've seen some Punjabi kind of rise up? At least the Pakistani Punjabi Muslim has no record of doing any such thing. So, in that sense, whether there will be large scale civic disturbances, we don't know. But that is certainly a fault line. That is certainly something which scares the hell out of these guys. So, there are multiple fault lines which, if anybody wants to exploit, can be exploited. But how exactly they should be exploited is another matter.
And how does the US exactly use Pakistan? जब अभी कुछ महीने पहले मैं I was reading a news that came out where Trump sent a bunch of these crypto guys to dump like a lot of I think Bitcoin and start some kind of a cryptocurrency reserve, and the government was more than happy to meet them so that they could replace the Pakistani rupee with this crypto thing. I don't think it went anywhere, but there were a lot of $1 billion, some billions or what, not pumped into Pakistan. So I'm trying to understand, like, how does America use Pakistan? And now, also in your latest tweet, you said something around the lines कि अमेरिका ने ये बोला है कि भाई अगर इंडिया पाकिस्तान की मुठभेड़ होती है तो हम डायरेक्टली इंडिया की साइड लेंगे क्योंकि हमारे अपने सिक्योरिटी के मतलब है. तो ये हाउ डज अमेरिका एग्जैक्टली यूज पाकिस्तान?
यार वो पहले भी कम उन्होंने when did they ever take our side? Never. And the
They are good
American,
at condemning stuff online कि बहुत बुरा हुआ, बहुत बुरा हुआ.
no, if your condemnation is going to be accompanied by some action,
Mhm.
then it has meaning. Otherwise, it's empty words, right? How does it matter? You condemn something. Who gives a shit? Uh, the thing is that to be fair to the Americans, uh, again, this is our people who have these notions that we conjure up. Um, that because we have a good thing going with the Americans or had a good thing going with the Americans, that they will now take our side. यार कोई किसी की साइड नहीं लेता, ठीक है? So the Americans had told us right at the outset that listen, east of India, that is vis-a-vis China, we will have 95% convergence with you. West of India, which includes like Pakistan and Afghanistan, and I'm talking about a time when the Americans were in Afghanistan. But that policy hasn't changed even after they left Afghanistan. They said we have only 5% convergence with you, right? Now, that should have been a wake up call for us. And we should have understood that, look, on certain things, the Americans are not going to be standing with us. And we should not even look for their approval. We should do what we need to do. We should develop our own capacities and capabilities to do what we need to do. Uh, I think somewhere along the line we thought, yeah, theek hai, this guy's on my back, so I can do, he will थप्पड़ दो तीन मारेगा पाकिस्तानियों को, उनको अकल आ जाएगी. नहीं आई, वो नहीं आनी थी क्योंकि उसने मारा ही नहीं. Uh, so the so it was our misconception of what the Americans will do for us. The Americans have their own uses for the Pakistanis. Much of it is, this crypto thing is a good entry point to get Trump's attention and maybe slosh a few hundreds of millions or maybe a couple of $1 billion uh, to get his interest. For example, there's now some deal they are talking about of this hotel which the Pakistanis own in Manhattan. It is earlier owned by the PIA, but now I think they've taken it out of PIA. But this hotel is Pakistani property. It's worth maybe $1 billion, maybe more. It's right in Manhattan. It's a heritage property.
It's called the Roosevelt Hotel, owned by PIA Investments. Yeah.
So in Trump's in his first tenure, there was when Imran was the prime minister, one of his cronies had struck a kind of a connection with Jared Kushner, uh, and there was some talk at that point of time of a collaboration with the Trump organization and Pakistan on this particular hotel. Maybe they were planning to buy it, lease it. I'm not very clear right now what exactly it was. But then that fell through. And now again, they have worked out some kind of a deal in which Steve Witkoff, who is again a Trump crony, uh, has gotten involved and they've worked out some kind of an MOU on this particular deal. Now, from the Pakistani point of view, it's just an MOU. It's not legally enforceable, but it is enough कि ट्रम्प का फुद्दू खींचना है तो MOU तो शुरू कर दिया ना, अब इस पे बातचीत करते रहेंगे. ठीक है. From Trump's side, he probably thinks कि अच्छा MOU हो गया, मतलब कि if I can pull them in a little more तो ये होटल मेरे पास आ जाएगा. See, there are serious allegations of corruption which are now being leveled against the current US administration, that it
I
is the most.
100% agree. Short, इन्होंने $560 million short करा after the oil.
ठीक है ना, that is just one thing which they've done. There are plenty of other scandals which are, again, I'm not getting into the veracity or otherwise of those, right? But the point is that these kind of insinuations being made, I don't remember uh, in Biden's time there were insinuations or allegations against his son. Nothing against him personally. Maybe a few that, there were some cronies, like there was that guy, I'm forgetting that guy's name, who was again into some kind of crypto business, a big donor to the Democratic Party, then went to jail.
Oh, Sam Bankman-Fried.
Right, right.
Sam Bankman-Fried. And in pharma, it was Alexander Shkreli. Two guys in that from that era.
There were these kind of scandals which happened, but they didn't really go up to Biden. And in the earlier these things also, there was some allegation, but not of the kinds which are now being made.
Mm-hmm.
अभी अभी इसके पीट हेग्सेट के ऊपर भी आ गया कि his financier was interested in investing in defense stocks before the war started, shit like that. So what is happening is that the Pakistanis have understood this and they have played this game where they are now literally bribing the US presidency. And this crypto thing is part of that bribe network which they've started. Now, the crypto which Trump family has started, apparently its price has fallen almost 90%.
Oh, you mean the Trump coin? Yeah. So they it went to $1 billion a day before the election results. It was, yeah, and Baron Trump.
But it went up even higher after that. And then over the last couple of weeks or months, I don't follow crypto. I don't understand it.
It's called rug pulling when you basically let it's a shit coin essentially. It has no value despite it being the backed by the Trump name. क्योंकि किसी ना किसी क्रिप्टो के पीछे कोई मिशन होता है, कोई कॉज होता है, like supposed to do something. So just like, okay, I'm investing in Trump via crypto, and yeah, they got the high point that they wanted and they pulled the rug.
So I don't understand this whole thing. I know that it's like one of those schemes where somebody comes and says कि अच्छा यार आज 100 रुपया दो तो मैं कल इसको 200 आपको वापस.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
Inherently, when something is too good to be true, then it probably is. So I'm one of those, right? So I don't understand it. So, but I know the politics of it. And the politics of it was that, again, with Witkoff and the Trump boys, they started this World Liberty Financial or something, which is into this crypto thing. They got this Pakistani guy who is part of this entire network. So there's some kind of a thing which they have gotten into. Again, this involved this guy from Binance, this Chinese fellow who was convicted by the Americans, and then his conviction was overturned by Trump. So there is that murkiness which is there around this whole deal. Now you've got the attention of the guy. Now you get the attention of the guy and you use that to push your certain agendas forward with it. तो वो वाला उनका खेल है. अब वो इनका इस्तेमाल करेंगे वेरियस एरियाज में. सी पार्ट ऑफ द रीजन, व्हाट people in India don't realize when there is this heartburn over कि ये पाकिस्तान ये कर रहा है, ये हम क्यों नहीं कर रहे, क्योंकि हम ये नहीं करते भाई. We don't do that shit, right? It is, will you want to do the kind of shit that Pakistan does? Can India do it? Can anybody in India do something like that, which is to fight other people's wars for them? We will never do it, right? That's not been part of how our strategic policy or foreign policy has worked.
Yeah.
Now, whether we want to change it or not is a different matter. Maybe in some cases, and I would argue, for example, in the Middle East, because I've said this earlier also, that listen, this is an extension of India, right? In extension of India in an economic sense. There is so much of economic interaction between us and the Middle East that it is an extension of the Indian economy. So it's a vital interest. Now, a vital interest cannot be protected only by issuing diplomatic missives. Perhaps at some stage you might have to, provide some kind of security in that region, not necessarily because you are wanting to, spread your security thing, but simply because it's a part of your own security
वैसे
architecture.
कभी हुआ नहीं है ऐसा कि आपको भी पता हो कि इंडियन फोर्सेस देश से बाहर गई हो प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए अपने इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट, ये भी पहली बार होगा अगर होगा तो।
यू नो 1947 से पहले हम यही करते थे।
वर्ल्ड वॉर वो तो जबरदस्ती फोर्स करते थे ना,
Not
यहाँ तो हम
World
विलिंगली
War,
जाएंगे।
not World War, not only World War, boss. The entire Middle East was Indian Army. Shanghai was Indian Army. The Indian in Shanghai, for example, in China, where there was this before the revolution took place, there was I think it was in Shanghai, if I'm not mistaken. There was this international kind of a city or protectorate. I'm forgetting the exact name
Let me look it up.
was which was run by the Brits. It was everybody from all over the world was out there, uh, and the entire security was in the hands of the Indians. It was Sikh troops who used to enforce, who did the policing out there, and the Chinese used to be terrified of the Sikh troops.
It's called the International Settlement of Shanghai from the 19th century till the 1940s. That's crazy.
राइट, तो इसमें कौन था? ये हम ही करते थे भाई। ये सारा काम इंडियन आर्मी करती थी, या और द इंडियन सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस यूज्ड टू डू। ये तो 47 के बाद वी स्टॉप डूइंग इट। You know, now I remember very vividly. My father used to tell me, and now apparently this guy Sam Dalrymple has written in his book. I haven't read that book right now. The entire Gulf economy was run on the Indian rupee. That was the legal tender.
Yeah, I've seen that. There's an RBI Monetary Museum in Bombay, which shows that there is a different kind of a currency, Indian rupee currency for Hajj, a different one for Myanmar, a different one for a bunch of these other places in the extended area.
So, तो ये हम लोग पहले करते थे भाई। ये तो फिर चाचा नेहरू आ गए और फिर हमने सब कुछ छोड़ दिया क्योंकि हम बड़े अच्छे लोग बन गए। और यू नो इंडिया नीड्स टू हैव अ बिगर काइंड ऑफ अ विजन। हम बहुत दकियानूसी टुच्चे लेवल की हमारी सोच हो गई है यार। और मैं आम मतलब कि रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में आपको ये नजर आता है, द काइंड ऑफ पेटी पेटी फाइट्स वी डू, द काइंड ऑफ पेटी वी टॉक अबाउट। आप पॉलिटिक्स हैज बिकम सो पेटी, उसने ये बोल दिया, उसने ये बोल दिया। वेयर इज दैट बिगर टॉक ऑफ हाउ इंडिया शुड behave as a big power? We are not a big power because we don't think like one. We talk a lot about becoming a big power, but we don't think like a big power, right? And that is what pisses me off. That badi badi baatein, Vishwa Guru, ye wo, all that nonsense we keep doing. We need to start thinking like that. We need to start acting like that. But we don't want to do it. And yet we want to prance around the world कि हम जी सुपर पावर बन गए। बहुत सारे लोगों को वैसे उनकी वेट ड्रीम्स है कि हम सुपर पावर बन गए। अबे यार, सुपर पावर बनने के लिए बहुत चीजों की जरूरत होती है भाई। आप नहीं हो सुपर पावर। आप सोचना तो शुरू करो, वैसे अपनी सोच तो उतनी बड़ी करो। सो माई पॉइंट व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू मेक इज दैट वी डोंट डू दैट दोस थिंग्स व्हिच द पाकिस्तानीज आर रेडी टू डू। Every conflict in the larger region, the Pakistanis have been involved in, and they made money out of it. That is the revenue model. That is not India's revenue model, right? So when people talk about the Pakistani is geographically closer in that area, it is a neighboring country, that's bullshit. That's not the reason why they do what they do. The reason why they do what they do is because that is their revenue model. That is their that is their economic model. That is how they they make themselves relevant and useful to rest of the world. We try and make ourselves relevant through other means. That we have a big market, we have a production center, we have a certain amount of intellectual heft of people, or intelligence heft, where people from some of our primary institutions go and you know uh, do well all over the world. That is what we try and sell, right? Pakistanis don't sell that. They are selling something else. So when we talk about what our standing is, where what we are involved in, what we are not involved in, you should take into account those factors before you just try and start writing the kind of nonsensical pieces that you keep reading in Indian media. जी पाकिस्तान ने हमारे ऊपर मार्च स्टील कर लिया है। That is why I like this guy Raja Mohan. At least he's sensible, he's cerebral, सोच के बात करता है. He looks at a larger thing and then he, talks about it. Most of the others just talk bullshit. Standard.
Hypothetically, if we sent our armed forces to protect the Gulf, would it not be an affront to America?
यार देखो ऐसे है. It's not as simple as कि हमने अपनी फौजें भेजी. It's not like that. That's not how it works. It has to be part of a larger security architecture,
Hmm.
uh, on which there would be some parts in which, you know, and it's not necessarily that we take a security responsibility for the whole region. We could take a security responsibility for parts of region, but it's easier said than done. Because what that means is that you then need to have a certain amount of uh, military capacity and capability to be able to discharge that role. It's not just कि मैंने 2 battalion वहां पर जाके तैनात कर दी. That's not good enough. You then need to start doing other stuff. How do I, if there is some kind of a security threat to them, then what is the kind of role the soldiers who are positioned out there will play? What is the kind of air defense systems we will have? What is the kind of offensive capabilities that we will build out there? How will we engage with other countries? So it's a very complex thing. It's not, again, I gave you the example of the colonial times. This is not the colonial times. These are post-colonial times. So the way you will have to, and you are not a hegemonic power like the United States. What you are is a security partner, right? And you are a security partner not because that's your revenue model. You're a security partner because this is an area of vital economic interest to you. It's an extension of your own economy, in a manner of speaking, and you need to protect them. So you are doing it for their sake and you are doing it for your sake. Then you need to start developing that entire, framework in which you're going to operate. Now, somewhere it could it could actually work complementary to what the Americans are trying to do. And there would be some areas where there would be, you know, where there could be some disagreements. But that is what diplomacy is all about. Diplomacy is not about fucking having chai with Pakistanis, yaar. That's not diplomacy, man. कि जी हमने उनके साथ डिनर कर लिया. Diplomacy is something far more, and very often you'll hear these diplomats talk. It's mostly anecdotal wisdom that they are imparting. There are a few, uh, maybe more than a few, who are very cerebral, right? Who actually know their shit, who actually specialized on certain regions and know the ins and outs of it. But by and large, what you get is anecdotal wisdom. And that's not what we need. What we need is that because now there is this thing going to happen after this conflict gets over. And we need to be clear in our minds what is the kind of role we want to play out there. Obviously, it will be in conjunction, in collaboration, in agreement with some of those countries. That what is the role India will play. And then if you're going to play that role, then you cannot say at some stage, you cannot say कि अच्छा यार मैं तो कतर की मदद करने के लिए किया था, बट अब वो अगर उसकी ईरान से लड़ाई हो रही है, ईरान भी मेरा दोस्त, तो मैं कुछ नहीं करूंगा. Then you can't afford to say that. Then you need to be able to play that role. So it's not an easy decision to take, but it is something that people in the foreign office and in other areas should be thinking about. They should be putting their thinking caps on and thinking कि हम कैसे क्या कर सकते हैं. And then there will be a domestic political fallout. भाई कल को कोई लड़ाई वड़ाई हो जाती है, there's something happens and your soldiers were to die in a place in a foreign land. How would that play out domestically? You have to, it's a political government. It's not a colonial government which was not answerable to anyone. So it's what I'm saying is that you need to start thinking on these lines.
What about our ideological dissimilarities with the Gulf? given that these are mostly Islamic nations, even though they have opened their economies to the world and they've all become tax havens and investment destinations. Just a simple example कि अब हम दुनिया में इस वक्त भारत में सब लोग धुरंधर 1 और 2 की बात कर रहे हैं. That movie is banned in these places. Yet we have trade and whatnot. We have ideological dissimilarities with these countries. As this region gets more and more politicized and warlike, how do we still plan to keep the peace with these people?
No, I don't think we have any problem with the Arabs. Let's be very clear on that count. In fact, we have very good relations with the Arabs. The only people we have actually a problem with, we've not had a problem with the Iranians. We've never had a problem even with the Afghans, right? On religious matters, right? Our attitude is कि भाई ठीक है, अब आपके देश में आप क्या करते हो वो आपकी मर्जी है, हम उस पर क्या बोल सकते. आप हमारे देश में जो होता है वो मत बोलो, हम आपके देश में नहीं बोलते हमारे उस, right?
Hmm.
On Purandar controversy, I don't think people have understood it properly. The reason that countries like the UAE and others will ban a movie like Dhurandhar is not because they are against the movie or what it shows. The reason is that they have a mixed population. They have a large number of Pakistanis out there, for example, right? And they are very, very careful that anything which could lead to any kind of civic disturbance within their country, they don't want it, right? Which is fair enough. I can't begrudge them that. I think I would want to do it, right? Uh, but listen, in India, we've banned movies, haven't we?
Yes.
Banned movies because we say, there was I think there was a movie, I'm forgetting the name. It was something on Jesus Christ. I'm forgetting the name of the movie. It became a big issue even in Europe. There were riots and all in Europe as well. I think The Last Temptation of Christ, if I'm not mistaken. That was the name of the movie. We banned it. Why? Because you have a Christian population.
Yeah, it's called The Last Temptation of Christ, banned in 1988.
Yeah. So, and a number of other instances like that. So, we also do that same thing. So, what ideological dissimilarities are we talking about? हम भी तो वही करते हैं. Number one. Number two, yes, they are Islamic countries, but they're also, Europe is entirely Christian, yeah. And they make no bones about it. We deal with them, don't we? The Americans keep talking about Christ and this bloody current administration, though they're virtual crusaders in some ways. Have we stopped dealing with them? We'll deal with people, yeah. Come on, that is what diplomacy. Like I said, diplomacy is to advance a country's national interest, right? It is not to do virtue signaling. It is not to कि जी हम जी भाई भाई और बहन भाई, and that is bullshit, right? It is to advance national interest. And if my national interest is served by dealing with Trump, I will of course do it. If it is served by dealing with Xi Jinping, I will do it. Why will I not do it? Right? Um, that is what it's all about. So why will I not deal with the Arab states? And look, let's be fair to them. Over the last 20 odd years, uh, I think there's a remarkable transformation that has taken place in these countries.
Correct.
Uh, and there is no reason I should not deal with them. Hell, I'm dealing with the Taliban now because the Taliban are no longer, questioning me. They're not questioning my right to exist. They are very comfortable with me. I'm very comfortable with them. I might not agree with what their system is. I might find some of their practices abhorrent, but those practices are not in India. They're in Afghanistan. I wouldn't want the Afghans to tell me how I should run my country. Who the fuck am I to tell the Afghans how they should run their country? I might not agree with many of those things, uh, but I'll engage with them not because of any other reason, simply because it's in my interest. Uh, and I will not deal with the Pakistanis because it's not in my interest, because they bring nothing to the table. And because they are opposed to my way of life. They want to undermine me, they want to damage me, they want to destroy me. That is their wet dream. Why will I deal with the people like that? So, we need to look at it in that context.
If people were interested in perhaps going beyond what they see on Twitter and YouTube and understand a little bit more about Pakistani society, not necessarily their polity. What would you recommend as a resource?
Yeah, actually, you understand because I've gone through that entire circle, right?
Hmm.
You start understanding a place and a people only with time. There's no magic bullet. Um, there was a time when I had similar romantic notions. कि नहीं नहीं यार, what is the problem? We speak the same language, the music, ये वो, all of that bullshit. You meet them, you can vibe with them immediately. It's not like with a Gora that it takes time before you start vibing. And then I realized, no, there's something fundamentally, you know, problematic, especially with these Pakistani Punjabis. Uh, with I've not felt that with Bangladeshis, for example. Uh, you can get along with them reasonably well. At least the ones who are the normal, sensible lot. Uh, I've not had that problem with the Nepalese or with the Sri Lankans. Uh, and even with the Sri Lankans, even during times when our relations were not very good, there was still a certain amount of civility, certain decency that with which you could engage with them. With these guys, it's I don't see any redeeming feature. I'll be very honest, but that is something which comes with experience. It comes with observation of the types that when a heinous attack of terrorism takes place in India and you are hurting, people who you thought were good, reasonable, enlightened people in Pakistan, these bastards on their television shows either keep quiet when their partners tell them that अगर किसी को मारना है तो हिंदुओं को जाके मारो ना, हमारे यहाँ पर क्यों करते हो, you know,
Mm.
and these bastards keep quiet. Or when you have these assholes like Sethi Peti and all, who will let slip out their concept of Islamic supremacism, खुद साला खत्री कन्वर्ट है, ठीक है ना, अपने आप को पता नहीं कौन सा अरब और पता नहीं क्या समझता है, अफगान अरब क्या समझता है ये. तो ये बड़े घटिया लोग हैं यार. दे आर I think Naipaul described them best in his two books, Among the Believers and Beyond Belief. I think if you read Naipaul carefully on Pakistan, he really nailed it quite well, uh, of how these converts behave, the kind of chip on their shoulder that they have. They're not even convinced of what they are really. Um, so, uh, so there's not any one resource which really gets you to know. It's only I would say it's experience.
Look, I want to thank you for your time. It's been very educative and informative, and I certainly enjoyed your rants. And I would love to have you on again.
अरे रैंड्स बोल रहा है.
नहीं, आप कभी कभी उसमें हो जाते हो, क्या कहते हैं, गुस्से में.
नहीं नहीं गुस्सा नहीं यार. It's just very frustrating that when you see the same shit happening over and over again, you say कि यार अब this was already a decided matter, अब आगे चलो यार इससे. मतलब कि वही पुरानी बहस में हम फंसे हो, तो नया कुछ सोच ही नहीं पाते हो. तो अब वो है, कुछ लोग थ्राइव करते हैं उसी में, वही पुरानी बहस दोबारा दोबारा. So it's frustrating.
Well, I hope. Look, I will say this thing. The fact कि I mean, I can just look at popular culture. एक picture धुरंधर जैसी आती है. I know people have talked about it to death. I think that largely is a very important reset of the average Indian's mind about who they're really dealing with. आप उसे कुछ भी बोलो. I think that's a very positive step. And people like you who talk about it so much, I think listening to you can certainly help people, because I think there is still a lot of reset and correction that needs to be done about what the average Indian thinks about the average Pakistani and what the average Indian thinks about a Pakistani establishment. And they still have rose-tinted glasses on. And it just this
Yes,
message has to be hammered home.
I'm sorry to drag this, but I have not seen any evidence which would lead me to believe that there is any difference between the ordinary Pakistani and the ordinary Pakistani establishment, that they are not on the same page, especially when it comes to India. I have not seen any evidence of that. And I'm not going by words, I'm going by actions.
Hmm.
I have not seen any evidence. And if somebody is going to bring out an outlier, कि जी उसने ये बोला था, अच्छा उसने बोल दिया फिर, how is that important? How is that relevant? Was there a protest from within the country over the certain policies that the Pakistani state was following? No, nothing, zero, zilch, right?
Hmm.
So, I think we need to question these things which कि ऑर्डिनरी पाकिस्तानी एस्टेब्लिशमेंट सरकार की गलती है जी लोग तो अच्छे रिश्ते चाहते हैं दीज आर नॉनसेंसिकल फॉर्मुलेशंस which we do to make excuses for bad behavior. वो हमारे है ना कि यार गन तो बड़ा मिला है बट बंदा बड़ा अच्छा है अबे यार वो गन मिलाता है बोल रहा बंदा बड़ा अच्छा है यार so it is that what kind of describes your attitude towards Pakistan कि साला दुनिया भर की हरामदर्दी करी उन्होंने लेकिन यार ठीक है बंदे बड़े अच्छे हमारे जैसे ही हैं अबे नहीं है तुम्हारे जैसे यार कब समझोगे
I hope ये podcast देखने के बाद लोग ये बात समझ जाए. It was great having you on. Where can people follow your work, Sushant?
आई डोंट नो यार
On Twitter? Can they follow your
दे
Twitter?
यार
ठीक है. Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you.
ओके बड़ी बाय